Welcome to the Undisputed Podcast. I'm your host, Joy Taylor. On today's show, who's to blame for Oklahoma's collapse against Georgia in the Rose Bowl? Plus, Joel Klatt and Charlie Weis are on set to break down the college football playoff results. And will Jim Harbaugh stick around in Michigan next season? Skip, Shannon, let's get to it. 2018 is less than 2 days old, and we already have the game of the year. Georgia came from 17 points down to beat Oklahoma 54-48. Georgia blocked Oklahoma's potential go-ahead field goal in double overtime. And then on the Bulldogs' next drive, Sony Michel ran it in for the game-winning score. Baker Mayfield accounted for 3 touchdowns, but the Bulldogs got the win and advanced to next week's national championship. Let's take a listen to Mayfield and Kirby Smart after the game.
This is a really unbelievable atmosphere. I mean, to think about both sides, both fan bases did a tremendous job. I want to give a lot of compliments to Oklahoma. You know, Coach Riley does a great job. I mean, Lincoln's been a problem for a lot of defenses, and he created a lot for us tonight. He does a really good job. But our kids are so resilient. They never stopped chopping wood. They kept fighting. They believed. There was offensive players affecting defensive players in the locker room at halftime, and they kept fighting.
Can't believe it's over. It's been a wild ride.
Shannon, what happened last night?
Georgia Bulldogs happened. That's what happened. And I tried to explain to someone sitting up here on this desk, Joy, not you, that the Georgia Bulldogs offense was for real. And I said if Oklahoma's offense and Georgia Bulldogs defense is a push, who you like? OU's defense or Georgia's offense? Give Georgia credit. They fell behind and they ran themselves back into the ball game. When you can carry the ball 25 times for 326 yards, 326, 13 yards a carry. The Big 12, they do not play defense. What they do is that they try to outscore you, and they hope they can create 1 turnover, maybe 2. And normally, if Oklahoma's playing anyone else, I'm not so sure they're able to overcome what happened to Georgia early, especially in that first half. But Georgia stayed the course. We are a running football team. They ran the football, and what they did is that they let the true freshman they put him in very manageable. They let him throw the ball on first down. So they came out and said, we're going to throw early, we're going to run late. Oklahoma fell into the trap is that we got a big lead. I don't think they took their foot off the gas. Oklahoma is Oklahoma. I thought their offense generated, they had over 500 yards. They did what they did. They scored 48 points. But when you play defense like they play, they gave up chunk runs. That's what allowed Georgia to get back in the game. They didn't have to methodically move the ball. Sony Michel, 75 yards. Chubby, 50 yards, 40 yards. They're getting 40, 50, 30, 70 yards at a clip. Joe, you run yourself back into the ball game. I've never seen this before. I've never seen a team fall behind like Georgia did in a ball game, especially a bowl game, and run themselves back into the game. And you look at the difference between the first and the second half, and although I don't listen to the sound, I know what Kirby Smart told his guys. He said, guys, they're not doing anything in this game that we have not seen on film. We've got to defeat blocks. We've got to get home. Well, it's kind of hard to defeat a block if you let the team they never get to third down, and when they do get to third down, it's third and manageable. They turned it up in the second half. They were able to get home with just 4. It started going 2nd and 10, 2nd and 12. They put pressure on Baker Mayfield. They got to him, and when they didn't get to him, they made him see ghosts. He was throwing off balance. Give Georgia credit. Oklahoma had a fantastic season, but at the end of the day, Georgia stayed the course. They were able to run themselves back into the game. They did just enough to come back and win this ball game. I'm proud of Georgia because when you got a true freshman, that's not every day. A true freshman in this type atmosphere can do what he did. He's going head-to-head with the Heisman Trophy winner, and he beat him. He outplayed him. Kudos to Georgia. Oklahoma, you had a great season. There's nothing to hang your head about. The better team won last night.
You done? Mm-hmm. My turn.
Shut up, Skip. It's not the end of the world.
I'm going to say one more time. I was born and raised a University of Oklahoma fan. I take my Sooners way more seriously and personally than I take my Dallas Cowboys. Trust me on that. And if you had told me sitting in your chair 24 hours ago that my Sooners would score 48 with 513 total yards on that defense, because that's a good defense.
Very good.
It's talented, and it's smart, and it's senior-laden, and it's extremely well coached. And I told you yesterday that Kirby Smart has instilled a backbone in that defense.
Yeah.
I never sensed when Mark Richt was in charge of that program. That has been the ultimate NFL pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had told me 48 points, 513, if you'd told me that my team would be ahead 31-14 with 6 seconds left in the first half, I would have said, thank you. Congratulations to me. Happy New Year to me.
Yep.
And instead, and I am sick to death, I'm hearing people call this a classic game. It was the farthest thing for me from a classic game. It was a classic collapse of the highest order. I would rather, seriously, I wish I'd lost 60-0 as opposed to the way this unfolded. Because in the first half, Georgia had zero answers for anything Baker Mayfield and company did. Zero answers for a Rodney Anderson. I told you he's got some Todd Gurley in him. He ran for 125 in the first half. Baker Mayfield threw for 200 in the first half. Oklahoma went 6 for 8 on third down in the first half. It's hard to score 31 points on anyone, let alone in the first half on Georgia, in the Rose Bowl, with a chance to get to the national championship game. And then, once again, I got Stoopsed. I got Stoopsed again. It's been Bob Stoops as the head coach of my Oklahoma Sooners for many years, dating back to 1999, but I'm pretty sure that he made some sort of agreement. I will step aside. I'll become an ambassador for the program, but you need to keep my brother, Mike, up in the press box coaching your defense. What there is of it, to your point. And this was the ultimate disaster on defense because, to your point, Jake Fromm played really well for a true freshman. I give you, he's got poise. He looks like he belongs. The moments don't get too big for him. He drove them for the tying touchdown. That was hard to do, man. Yeah. Making one play after another. He's got two high-quality backs behind him, and they all play with discipline and poise. That whole group does. So I hats off to Georgia, and in the end, they were the better football team. But the point is, Jake Fromm is just a true freshman. And the point is, that's not an aerial circus that he is operating.
No.
They mostly run the football. And to your point, they didn't just run it. They ran LA freeway runs, right? It was like the 405s over here and the 10s over here and the 605 freeways over here. And they're going 75 yards touchdown, 50 yards touchdown, 38 yards touchdown. And the ultimate indignity was the last play of the game when Sony Michel, he just turns up off the left side, and nobody's home. He had a walk-in touchdown to win the game.
He's looking like, is somebody going to tackle me for real?
You're looking around like,
no, for real.
Is anybody? Oh, I guess I can just trot in, untouched. Really, I'm untouched. I can get to trot in, and the game's over, and we get to play Alabama. Or you didn't know that yet, but they get to play the national championship game. So, do you realize how many big stage, late season, high-stakes games that Bob Stoops inflicted one humiliation and embarrassment after another on me as an OU fan and all OU fans out in Sooner Nation? It was over and over. Let me just hit some of the lowlights, and this was the all-time worst. This was the worst last night. But if we go back to 2004, they're in the Big 12 championship game as the number one ranked team, and they lose to Darren Sproles in Kansas State 35-7 and go on and lose to Nick Saban, LSU, in the Sugar Bowl for the national championship. I don't even know how they got there. Right. Then Matt Leinart does a 55-19 on them in the national championship game in which they were favored. Do you remember the Boise State disaster? Nobody knew who Boise State was. And the Fiesta Bowl, 43-42 in overtime. It's just the ultimate humiliation. West Virginia was still in the Big East and beat Bob Stoops' team in the Fiesta Bowl 48-28. Then Clemson in the Russell Athletic Bowl does a 40-6 on Bob Stoops and turns right around with Deshaun Watson and does a 37-17 on them in the semifinal game with Baker Mayfield. Johnny Manziel does a number on him in the Cotton Bowl. It's 41-13, and he throws for 287 and runs for 229. This is on Mike Stoops' defense. This was the ultimate second-half collapse. And I thought the turning point of the game came 6 seconds left in the first half when my kicker, who's pretty good, Seibert, he tries to squib kick it, but he kicks it right to somebody named Tay Crowder, just some backup linebacker, and he makes the catch of the night.
Yeah.
He snags
That's
it.
unbelievable.
It's hard, man,
Yes.
because it's a bullet,
Yes.
right? And all of a sudden, what? Georgia's got the ball 1st and 10 at your 47, right?
You're taught to get out of the way of that ball.
Sure. Yeah, because it's going to be fumbled.
You don't want it to carry them. You don't want it to hit you in ricochet, and then they get it.
Yeah.
So you get out the way.
I got it. He snagged it. And all of a sudden, Jake Fromm hits a 9-yard pass, and the little kicker with the black glasses comes out and bombs it.
You see the stash he had on, Joe?
What was that?
You probably got a Volkswagen.
Look, yeah.
You got a van.
But he just bombs it. He bombs it from 55, and it felt like the whole the field tilted in favor of Georgia. And they run up the tunnel to the locker room at halftime, and they run back out, and they clamped down on defense. I don't know in my career if I've ever seen a wilder swing of momentum from first half where you can't stop anything they do to you can stop everything they do. I saw press man. I saw them get up on those receivers, and they're young receivers. They're talented, but they're not physical.
Right.
I saw press man across the board. I saw blitz after blitz. I saw Baker Mayfield with 25% of his throws in the first half under duress, 41% in the second half under duress. And you know what? His draft stock tumbled. I thought, I believe I was extremely disappointed and very concerned for him in the NFL because that's an NFL caliber pass rush they can generate with big, long, strong athletes, tall athletes. He's having a hard time finding it. He couldn't see over people. He's maybe 6 feet tall.
Well, I think the biggest thing, Skip, is that, as you mentioned, they were 6 for 8 in the first half.
Yeah.
They were 1 for 10 in the second half.
In overtime.
Overtime.
Yeah.
But what happened is that you kept them, if you notice, they started getting home some with 4-man pressure. Baker ran himself into some sacks. And so now it's 2nd and 10, it's 2nd and 12. Now you're coming back, instead of having it 3rd and 3, you got it 3rd and 8. Now we can dictate when you're going to throw the football, because the first half, I thought Lincoln Riley did a great job of run, pass, run, keeping Georgia off balance. Once they got them in a situation where we know we're going to force you to pass the football, now we can tee off on you. They forced Baker also. He started seeing ghosts, Skip, because a lot of times he started throwing the ball. He thought they were going to be there, and they weren't. But give Georgia. I
do. No, they're really good on defense.
Yeah.
They were highly impressive. But as impressive as they were, Bob Stoops' defense was unimpressive. Yeah. It's hard to get back in a shootout with cross-country runs. You just can't do it. I've never seen anybody do it.
I knew Georgia could run the ball, Skip. But I don't believe Kirby Smart thought they would run for 300 plus.
Well, how many handoffs, just straight handoffs, did you see where it's
that
like,
was a direct snap that Sonny Michel scored on.
Yeah,
that was a direct snap.
You could drive an aircraft carrier through that hole, right?
Yeah, that's like a movie set, Skip, when they shut the freeway down.
Yeah.
And it's just wide open. You look at they superimposed it. The hole that Sonny Michel scored the first 75-yard touchdown, Skip.
Yep.
They could fit 9 of his bodies through the hole. So if you line up 9 Sonny Michel side by side, that's how big the hole was. Skip, I get it, but that's unacceptable.
It's unacceptable. Listen, Mike Stoops is a good guy. He has to go. If they're going to move forward with this program, you have to get rid of the Stoops factor, as I always call it. And then, by the way, at the end of the game, we get a shot on the sideline of Bob Stoops cheerleading. And when I saw that, I said, I'm dead.
Come on,
I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm out.
That man
I
ain't
got no
bad
shot.
luck.
He is. He's always been bad luck. He broke through and won one lucky national championship in 2000 in which they were a 10.5-point underdog to Florida State.
Right.
They had no business. They had like a overachieving Josh Heupel at quarterback, and he's ridden that one national championship all the way through, disaster after disaster after disaster.
But Skip, they don't, with the exception of TCU, no one really plays defense in the Big 12. They try to outscore you. And what happens is that Oklahoma puts so much pressure on you that you got to match them point for point. You're not beating them 17-14, Skip. So what they do is they put so much pressure on you, they force you into 1-2 mistakes. So a game that's 14-3 or 14-10, you make one mistake, now it's 17-24. Now you're looking at 24-10, and you're playing an uphill battle, and they get you out of running the football. Give Georgia credit, because even though they fell behind, they stuck to running the football. You see a lot of teams get out of that.
That's just who they are. I don't know how they can do much else. Jake Fromm's a high percentage. He was 20 and 29. You know,
But most of them was
he's
hitches
not-
and shallow crosses.
He's not bombs away.
No.
He can't get you back in the game
No.
like that. So, for me, as an Oklahoma fan, you can ask Ernestine this. The whole second half just had an inevitability to it because you could just feel it coming, and it was like slow death. It was like methodical torture. I felt like I was falling off a cliff and I was suspended in midair. I knew I was going to hit the ground hard. I knew it was inevitable, and it just wouldn't come fast enough because I didn't think they could win in overtime, and yet they got miraculously one huge break. They get
Jumped offside?
no, the Caleb Kelly, where he's the best player on my defense, and he went up and blew up Michelle,
Right.
and he fumbled. And Stephen Parker, who's not a bad safety, he scoops
Oh,
and
yeah.
scores.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, I look up, and wait a second, we're back ahead by 7, and then miraculously, Mike Stoops' defense forces a 3 and out. So Baker Mayfield has the football with 5 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
First and 10 at his 23. And all you got to do is make maybe 2 first downs.
Yeah, 3 first downs would probably make them
end it.
burn their time.
Okay,
Yes.
but 2 and punt it back to the 15 and make the true freshman go 85 yards for the winning touchdown because you got to score 7 just to even get to overtime.
Correct.
That's going to be impossible. And what do? Baker Mayfield came up small. I got to say, he came up smaller than his 6 feet height. And they go 3 and out, and Seibert, the kicker punter,
He's been shaking them all night, Skip.
but he missed it, and it went 29 yards. And all of a sudden, Georgia's got it first and 10 at his 41. And I'm thinking, well, now they got a shorter field. Now they're going to move, and they did. Boom, 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 boom. Credit to Georgia. But now back to Lincoln Riley. This is why you need to get the Stoops influence out of this program. Let Lincoln Riley go forward. In the second half, to me, Lincoln Riley, who's regarded as one of the better, if not the best play callers in the country, he just tried to out-cute himself. Every big play in the second half when they were under duress, under fire, you got to make a play, he tries to trick them. He kept sending a message to Kirby Smart, I can't beat you straight up. I got to run trick plays. The one trick play worked at the end of the first half when they had CeeDee Lamb do the reverse pass to Baker Mayfield, and that made it 31.
Right.
And then the whole second half is trick play, cute, out-cute you. And just line up and do what you do, the way Georgia was. Let Baker Mayfield just drop it back and try to throw it to the tight end. Just do something. Instead, they're trying to run, gizmo, gadget plays.
But that's who they are, Skip. You knew the momentum. Okay, the first half, Oklahoma really had all the momentum. Okay, they gave up that 6 second. The guy snagged it. He ends up throwing a 9-yard pass. They kicked a long field goal. You knew Georgia was going to make a run. The question is, did Oklahoma put enough distance between them and Georgia? Skip, you know there's going to be momentum swing. But normally, like in a regular football game where the momentum goes back and forth, in a game of this magnitude, you're going to get maybe 2, possibly 3 swings.
Yep.
The question is, how much distance and separation have you put between you and the other team? We saw it in the second game, Alabama. You see Alabama got that swing, they go score, boom, and game's over. That's it. They didn't put enough separation, and I agree with you. If Baker's that dude, you can't give Georgia the ball back.
You can't give Georgia. Or if you do and they go score and tie and you got 55 seconds left, remember what Dak did at Pittsburgh last year with 42 seconds left? They went down the length of the field and
they
scored.
had 3 timeouts.
3 timeouts. They give them the ball back, and they go nowhere. So if you're that guy, again, you're playing a high-level, high-quality defense that has you on your heels. But do something. And then you got your chance.
What about in overtime, Skip? Do you think they should have gone for the touchdown or settled for the field goal? Would you have felt better had they gone for the win?
You can ask Ernestine. I turned to her and said, at this point, just go for it. Just go for it because I don't know what's left. You've lost momentum. Just go for the quote-unquote kill here.
Right.
And by the way, speaking of that, just a quick thought. Baker Mayfield is who he is. We're going to talk about him a little later in the show, but he did throat slash after Georgia missed the first half field goal.
Right.
And he was trash-talking and taunting the whole game, especially in the pregame. And it's just who he is, but I'm okay with it if you can back it up.
Yeah.
And he couldn't back it up. So he's reduced after the game to saying, they won, they can talk. And one of the Georgia players chastised him on the field and said, humble yourself. Well, we'll talk about that a little later, but I think this is just who he is. And as long as he can back it up, I'm good with it. But in the second half, he threw for a grand total of 87 yards and looked overmatched. He just did.
That's not good enough. You're that dude. If you're that dude, Skip, and you got a 14-point lead to start the second half, you got to bring the goods home.
Yeah.
You got to come home with the bags.
Yeah.
You got to.
Yeah, because I got to tell you, as terrific as those two backs are for Georgia, I swear to you, the best running back on the field is your guy, Rodney Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
He's a stud, man. He's like 6'2", 235.
Right.
You saw it. He just dominated. I mean, he had the most yards of anybody on the field.
Skip, you got two scores to play
Yeah.
with. So all you got to do is just do what you do.
Get it home, man.
You got to. You
And
got to bring the
instead,
mail.
It was slow death. That was the most painful night of fandom for me as an Oklahoma fan I've ever experienced.
But Kirby Smart tried to give the game away. I don't know why he bought Swift in the ball game to back up the third string running. Skip, you got Michelle getting 18 yards a carry. You got Chubby getting 14 yards a carry. And you bring a guy off the bench, he missed the hole. If he hits that hole, they stay on the field. I'm like, really, really, Kirby? I mean, you got two guys that's just running up and down the field. They can't. It's like running of the Bulls in Pamplona. And you're going to bring this guy. I get it. He's a high recruit, and you promised him things, but not now. Not now. Chubb's going to be gone next year. Sonny Michel might leave. But come on. Skip, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen a team run themselves back into a ball game.
I haven't either against Mike Stoops' defense. Way to go.
No mercy. Baker Mayfield's career at Oklahoma is over after the Sooners lost to Georgia last night. Mayfield accounted for 3 total touchdowns, but he also threw an interception in the loss. He won the Heisman Trophy and is projected by many to be a first-round pick, but he also made headlines for his trash talking and antics. Let's take a listen to an emotional Mayfield after the game.
Can't believe it's over. It's been a wild ride.
We're joined now by Charlie Weis. Charlie, welcome. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Charlie, did Baker help or hurt his draft stock yesterday?
All right. I have not studied the quarterbacks yet, nor do I have the privy conversations with them at this point. But if I were taking a quarterback, that's who I'm taking.
Still.
That's who I'm taking him above everybody. Wow. And I'm taking him above everybody. Look at the things the negative that you guys all see, I believe with hard coaching, you can get rid of. But you can instill fire in somebody. Either they have it or they don't, and he has it. Okay, he can make every throw. Okay, his intangibles are through the roof. Now, are there negatives there? Yep. But I'd like to see what would happen the first time somebody like me said that in front of the entire offense, just reamed them in front of the entire offense, using every word in the book. See how the cockiness level would go down exponentially, and it would. Okay, I don't think that's happened to him yet. What happens a lot of times with quarterbacks is you baby them. Okay, you quietly correct them, whereas if Shannon makes a mistake, they'll say, hey, you were supposed to do this on this play.
Yeah.
But if a quarterback makes a mistake, you hear the coordinator, well, you're on this play.
Tell me what you're thinking on this play.
So,
yeah, what I'm thinking.
well, that's not the way I coached. So if it happened, like if Tommy Brady were to make a mistake, I said, what the hell are you thinking? And the players absolutely love that because they know that you're treating him no differently than you're treating them. I think that doesn't look like that's happened with that young man. Now, maybe it has, but it doesn't look that way. And I think that you get control of you get the outlandish part of the behavior. He's got fire, he's got touch. The number one thing, the most important physical attribute of a quarterback is accuracy. Absolutely. And he's the most accurate of all of them. You watch all those other guys, everyone wants to talk about them. Every time I watch them, they got big numbers, but they don't never fire me up. That doesn't mean I don't like Darnold. That doesn't mean I don't like Rosen. I mean, they don't fire me up when I watch the game. When I watch him, he fires me up. I mean,
He did not fire me up in the second half. He threw for 200 in the first half and looked like he was indefensible. They had no answer for him in the first half, and they had lots of answers for him.
Yeah, but see, you're blaming it on the quarterback. I don't know what the play calls were. I don't know what they were being asked to do. Okay, too many times I watch a game analytically. I don't watch it just to see what happens. So when I watch things happen, like when they're not throwing the ball in overtime, I'm looking to say, well, I wonder if they called a run-pass option, and because there's too high safety and the numbers in the box were favorable, that's where they ran the ball. Now, conceptually, that's correct. I still want to be throwing it, but conceptually, that's correct. I can't tell you how many times the Patriots go to the line of scrimmage and Tommy sees two high safeties and he's checking from a pass to a run.
Yep.
I mean, it happens all the time. So whereas you're putting it all on number 6, I can't do that without knowing what the circumstances were.
Okay, I hear you. Maybe it's the play caller's, Lincoln Riley's fault. Maybe he's most to blame. But my cause for concern in the second half was it looked like Baker Mayfield shrank to me. He might be 6 feet tall, or he might not quite be 6 feet tall. And he started to shrink in the pocket because he was getting hounded and pounded by an NFL-size pass rush. And the corners and safeties finally just said, you know what? We're going to come up and play press man across the ball because you got a true freshman wideout over here and you got a 165-pound wideout over here named Hollywood, and you have a tight end who's a lumbering tight end. I think he'll play pro football, but he's about 6'5", 6'6", but he can't get off coverage off a safety who can come up and stick him right in the mouth. And all of a sudden, Baker Mayfield had tight windows to force it into instead of receivers just loping free for big scores, which he had in the Big 12 and he had in the first half yesterday. And, man, I was concerned because you gave the Heisman Trophy winner the football with a 7-point lead and 5 minutes left in the game. You got to make a couple of first downs. Or for that matter, with 55 seconds left in the game tied and 3 timeouts, as you point out, he's the Heisman Trophy winner. Go make a play. Again, does the play calling shackle him?
Well, I got 2 things to say to that, okay? First of all, as a play caller and designer of plays, you always can get guys open. You can get guys open. I mean, you can get guys, now, you can't get them open 10 times.
Right.
Okay, but you can run bunches. You can run,
Stack
there's exotics that you can get in to get guys open. You always can get somebody open. Okay, so when people say you can't get them open, if you put 4 people across the field or 5 people across the field and run vertically, you might not get them open because now you're counting on them winning one-on-one. Okay, so you always can get somebody open. So I throw that argument out because I do believe that that's part of the design of a play. Are you counting on guys just winning one-on-one to get open, or are you helping them get open?
Okay.
That's number 1. Number 2, do you like Russell Wilson? Well, it's just a question. Either you do or you don't.
Yeah.
Okay, then you like Baker Mayfield.
He's not as sudden as Russell is. He's not as he doesn't have the escape artistry that Russell has.
I agree with that. But I'm saying that's who you got. I mean, I'm not saying they're exact.
Right.
I'll say I don't let that 6 foot, he's only 6 feet tall. I don't let that scare me. Now, of course, I haven't watched every game, but I'm sure if I'm watching every game, especially in the Big 12, when he's throwing it for 500 yards a game, there's going to be very little I dislike. The most important thing I would need to do if I were an NFL franchise, I'd need to be able to know him personally. I'd need to be in his mind. I know what his heart is. Okay, I'd like to know where his head is, because his head's really going to determine what kind of success he has, because he's already fighting one limitation, and that's just outright size.
Yep.
For me, I'm unchanged because I thought he did some good things early on. I thought he threw the ball well from the pocket. I thought he threw on the move very well. I think the first touchdown and maybe the last touchdown that tied the game, or that tied the game up, he moved out of the pocket.
He beat the rush.
And like Charlie, you always say, you don't see pressure, you feel pressure.
That's right.
But I also felt that he felt something that wasn't there and ran himself into some sacks because they started heating him up. And when they started to heat him up, he started to see ghosts that weren't actually there. And so his accuracy suffered a little bit. The thing is, there are some red flags. You have his height, you have his off-the-field stuff. And as you mentioned, Charlie, if you're looking to take this young man in the first round, or even maybe high in the second round, you're going to do your due diligence. You're going to know everything there is to know about Baker Mayfield, and you're just not going to get it from him. You're going to ask him people that was in his life that he might not know that were in his life. So you want to find out everything you can about him, because the red flags are there, Skip, not just his height, But there are some things that he's done off the field. There are some things that he's done on the field.
I agree.
That says, okay, this is a red flag. Let me pull up here and stop and proceed with caution.
It's funny you say that because in recruiting, a lot of times when I would go recruiting, I would go talk to the janitor. I'd go talk to the librarian.
Right.
Not the football coach. They're going to lie to you.
Exactly.
They're going to tell you the best kid that they've ever had.
Right.
Oh, the best. They're all the best.
Yes.
I mean, I can't tell you how many the best I've ever had. But then when you're the security guard.
Yes.
You know, the people that really know who the people are in the school. Okay, you go, hey, what's this kid like? And, you know, every once in a while they say, what a dirtbag. You know, like that, and you'd know that, okay, that was a red flag
Yes.
now,
Yeah.
you know, when somebody like that. But you're right, NFL teams are going to do due diligence on him. So, like, he might not have the height for them to take in the first couple of picks like people were taking. But if I'm a good team, and I need a backup. I need a starting quarterback.
That could
Okay,
sit for a couple years.
that could sit and learn how to do things right.
Yep.
Okay, I mean I'm jumping all over.
I hear you, but to your earlier point, I look for transcendence at the college level. I look for Deshaun Watson to say, okay, get out of the way. I got this.
Cam Newton.
I'm going to make this play with
Yeah.
my legs or my arm, and I'm going to beat you. And I wanted Baker Mayfield to trot on the field as the reigning Heisman Trophy winner twice last night. 5 minutes left. 55 seconds
Three
left.
timeouts.
Show me. Do it. Be that guy. Be Deshaun. Show some NFL team. It's just college football. You're not even playing pro. You know, some of them will play, but
Yeah.
a lot of them won't play pro
Correct.
football. And show me you can march that team to the winning field goal.
Well, it's like me being in New England and with the game on the line, not having it in 12's hands.
Oh, yeah.
You know, shame on me. You know, if that's the case right there. Well, there were that 3rd and 2, and we're handing it to some guy. I didn't even know who the guy was, but no disrespect.
He
Okay.
hadn't been in the game. You're trying to trick him.
But
Yep.
I'm letting 6 have the ball in his hand.
No mercy. Alabama dominated Clemson in the Sugar Bowl last night and will move on to face Georgia in next week's title game. Bama's defense was the story, holding Clemson to just 6 points and under 200 total yards. In the third quarter, Mack Wilson had a pick 6 to seal the win for the Crimson Tide. We're joined by Fox College football analyst Joel Klatt. Joel, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Yep.
See, Shannon?
No.
You can get it a day after. I haven't
Okay.
seen you yet. If you haven't seen someone, you can say
Okay,
Happy
you
New
get
Year.
till Wednesday, Joe. You get to the 3rd.
Wednesday and then
You're
it's
even to be
over.
February 13th, talk about Happy New Year.
Joe, are you surprised by Alabama's performance?
No, in fact, I thought it was the least surprising thing of the entire day. You know, I was actually pretty surprised that Clemson laid the egg that they did, in particular with Kelly Bryant's form in the last 3 or 4 games to end the regular season. I was surprised that Jake Fromm for Georgia had so much poise in his last drive in the fourth quarter. I was surprised at the conservative nature that Oklahoma took late in that game offensively. The least surprising thing of the day was that Bama played great on defense. That's what they do. Since 2007, there's been no team in college football that has held more teams to under 200 yards. 49th time. Does that make sense?
Damn!
49th time.
Did you know that?
Wait, you're cherry picking stats.
No, that's just 49 times they've held opponents under 200 yards.
Since
You know the
2000.
next closest team?
Who the next closest?
Next closest. TCU with 29.
What?
20 games.
We torched TCU twice this year.
20 games. Listen, that team came out with a purpose, a very clear purpose. They were going to reestablish their identity on the defensive side. And let's face it, if Nick Saban has a month, guess what he does? He shuts people down. They shut out Michigan State 2 years ago. They held Washington. Washington didn't have much of a chance in that ball game. The only team that had a chance was one of the most physically gifted and talented teams I've seen in a long time, which was the Zeke Elliott Ohio State team that could actually just sit there and line up with Alabama. But when you're overmatched like Clemson was
Ohio
last
State
night.
scored 42 in that game, and Zeke ran for 230.
Yeah. But look at all those first rounders they had on that team.
All of them. The offensive
Joey
line.
Bosa, all those guys were there.
Here's another aspect, and I do want to bring up that game as a comparison because I know that that's going to be one of the things in your arsenal that you bring up, right, is these games. Do you understand that if you can't get the ball down the field against Alabama, you have no shot? No shot. Michigan State couldn't do it. Washington couldn't do it last year. And Clemson had no plan to push the ball down the field. And this was very obvious that when you give Saban a month to prepare for Clemson, he's going to shut you down. But when Clemson only had 1 week to prepare for Alabama, they were able to get things done, in particular with Deshaun Watson.
That's it. Clemson had Deshaun Watson, and as I told him earlier, the drop-off from Deshaun Watson to Kelly Bryant was like going from Tom Brady to Tom Savage. That's how severe it was because—
I don't know about that.
Well, seriously, Kelly Bryant was horrendous last night, and I'm with you. I watched him, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I thought he was decent.
He was getting better.
Yeah,
no
he
doubt.
looked like he could throw it a little in the regular season games, and all of a sudden you put him on this stage under those lights, under that fire from that defense, and he just crumbled. He can run it a little bit, but he couldn't throw it a lick last night. And if you can't throw it a lick, you got no shot.
No.
And Etienne is not bad, and he got his bell rung early in the second quarter, and then he was pretty useless the rest of the game. So I thought they could establish a little bit, just like a credible bit of run. And then, as you brought up, Minkah Fitzpatrick is really good. He's the best DB in the country, and they just put him on poor little Hunter Renfrow and just said, no,
He didn't have a chance.
You can't have him.
You take a possible top 5 pick and put him on a formal walk-on.
You do. And the walk-on's pretty, he's pretty shifty.
It shows what Coach Saban thinks about him.
That's true.
That is
That's
correct.
true.
And he made 2 nice catches late in that last ill-fated drive that resulted in no points. But the point is, Minkah said after the game, I put hands on him. And he did. He just got up and got physical with him and took him out of the game and took the security blanket away from the young quarterback who was just lost. But all that said, don't forget this. Clemson has the ball and is actually driving the football and is all the way down to 1st and 10 at the Alabama 35, and it's mid-third quarter, and it's still only 10-6 Alabama. And all of a sudden, Kelly Bryant drops back, and these are just back-to-back bad luck plays, and he gets blown up as he's trying to throw, and the ball squirts sideways, and the big fella, Payne, just snatches it. He did. He made a nice catch, and he rumbled and stumbled down, and he gets a horse collar, and all of a sudden, they're in business 1st and 10 at the 27 of Clemson, and go boom, 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 touchdown, and now it's 17-6, and then the very next play, so 13 seconds later, Kelly Bryant tries to force one in, the ball gets batted up in the air, and it's pick 6.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it goes from 10-6 to 24-6, and the game is over. Well, it was really a 2-play game, and that was it, ball game. But until that point, I'm just saying, well, this is like a 50-50. This is I wasn't sure anybody was going to score more than like 14 points, 16 points maybe.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised Alabama won. I'm surprised with the relative ease at which they won. Because
was it that easy?
Yeah, Skip, because I don't think Alabama ever felt they were in jeopardy. Because Clemson has shown no signs that they could consistently move the ball. And so unless they got a pick 6 or they got a scoop and score, the likelihood of them driving the ball 70 yards, 80 yards, because remember, Alabama kept them backed up. So now all of a sudden you're going to have to drive. You're not against Alabama unless you got. See, Skip, when you talk about Deshaun Watson, look what he did to Belichick's defense. Look what he did to the Legion of Boom.
Loved him. I loved him.
So you know what he can do. Cam Newton.
Yeah.
So we're talking about guys that have extraordinary college careers,
correct,
but they've been that in the NFL also. A guy that can only run the football, he's got to be more than serviceable to beat Coach Saban, because his defense, they're predicated in choking off the run.
Yeah.
They got to make you one-dimensional, Skip, because they play a base 3-4, and they like to keep big people on the field. Well, now, if they can't stop the run, they got to take those big people off and put little guys on there. Now you start back running. He wants to dictate to you, you're throwing the ball in this situation. We know it. Okay, we're ready. But when he can't dictate with Zeke, because you keep thinking about Zeke ran for 230, but Cordell Jones picked up a lot of third downs with his legs, and he made some clutch throws.
And they threw it down the field.
Yes,
Remember how they would attack down the field. Those safeties get a little bit softer, and then all of a sudden you hit a 3-man front right there on one side of the center. Another thing, guys, is you bring up, it's only 1 play or 2 plays, and I agree. Listen, 10-6, you think, boy, Clemson's got a little momentum. However, that was after Alabama had turned the ball over in their own territory, and Clemson only got a field goal out of it. Mm-hmm. That's when I thought to myself, okay, this isn't happening.
They didn't get a yard, and then Jalen Hurts. Calvin Ridley's like 10 yards behind the secondary. All Jalen Hurts has to do is throw the ball. He underthrows and the safety gets back in and makes the play. If that score gets to 17-3, it might end up being 31-3.
You never know. You never know.
He threw for 120 yards.
What did
That's not impressive.
What did Coach say? When they asked Coach Saban, what did he say against Auburn? He said, we got away from our identity.
Yeah.
They gave up 168 rush yards to
But
Auburn.
Skip, on 49 attempts.
Okay, but it's what Auburn does, and you couldn't stop them from doing what they do. Now, they
Stidham.
trick you. It's all misdirection, and it's
Little-
clever.
Little different offensively.
But
than
Stidham threw the ball well.
he
though,
threw
Skip.
it pretty
That's
well.
right.
So we're going to see,
Yeah.
because I don't believe Sonny Michel and Chubb will run the football effectively against Alabama like they did Oklahoma. So now the true freshman will have to play big. Now, you know Coach Saban, you know what they like to do with true freshmen. He'll come get you.
They're trying. Georgia's going to do, or at least try to do, something that I candidly haven't seen in the Saban era, which is
Line up in the eye. And
just go to the center of the ring and say, "Let's go." I mean,
Who they are.
Good luck, I guess. I mean, that's why I mean, clearly
LSU
Bama's
tried
gonna
to
be
do it
favored.
2 straight years with Leonard
And
Fournette.
it doesn't
and
even come
Went
close.
nowhere.
It's
Didn't
hard.
even come close.
It's hard to line up in I formation and say, we're going to pitch it to you or we're going to hand it to you and run the ball down his throat. He goes and gets a certain type. If you look at all his linemen that he's sent to the NFL, they're all built the same way, Skip. They're about somewhere between 6'3" and under, and they're like 325. That's what he wants, because he refuses to let you run the football.
Yeah.
But if you can run it a little, just a little, but you got a quarterback, you look at the quarterbacks that's beat him. Johnny Manziel, the Tebow, the Cam Newton, the Deshaun Watson, the Chad Kelly.
Trevor Knight. I can keep.
Yeah, but what did he do to Trevor Knight when he got him at Texas A&M? Beat the brakes off
Yeah,
him.
but what did
What do
Trevor
you-
Knight
by the
do
way,
to him in the
what do-
Sugar
What
Bowl?
do you mean on and
It
on,
was
by the way?
well, it's
are
on
like
and on.
We're talking about a decade. We're mentioning like 6 guys, and you're like on and on. Like 49 times they've
Trevor
given
Knight
up less
scored-
than 200 yards.
Trevor Knight put up 45 on Alabama in a Sugar Bowl. This is Trevor Knight. I'm not talking about
Skip,
Deshaun Watson.
Okay, let's just say for the sake of argument, they play 12 games a year. 12, so that's 120 games. You pick out 8. What happened in the
I'm
100?
picking
other
out the
100?
championship, the bowl games. I'm only doing bowl games.
Okay, what-
I'll throw in one kick 6 game where he gave up 34 to Auburn, but
You know he's going for his 5th national title.
okay.
In
I'm
a
just
9-year
saying.
span.
I'm only
Nobody's ever done
I'm only
that.
going back the last 4 years, and it's like one big disaster after another. Deshaun scores 40. Deshaun scores 35. That's a lot of
I
points.
mean, he was a transcendent player. Deshaun was.
Yes,
a transcendent
Cam
player.
Newton.
I mean, look at what.
Look at what Johnny did. Skip, Johnny
Wait.
McZad had what?
It's
talking
Saint
about-
Nick we're talking about. Don't give me transcendent player when you got Saint Nick.
I mean, listen.
And
any metric that you can possibly bring up, they're the best defense. They're the best team in the last decade.
Okay,
Any
but-
metric that you can possibly bring up. Now,
Okay.
there are going to be occurrences where a great player, a transcendent player, a couple of Heisman Trophy winners,
Yeah.
a guy that
Chad
should have
Kelly?
won the Heisman Trophy.
Trevor Knight.
I mean, you're talking about like 1 or 2 instances in a decade where a guy that's not a Heisman Trophy caliber player actually beats them. 49 times they've given up less than 200 yards. That's 20 more than any other team in
And in
college
college
football.
game, I mean, 300-yard game.
But
is-
those are overrated SEC games. Seriously,
I
those,
mean,
those are
listen,
Vanderbilt games.
You've got me.
He don't play
This
Vanderbilt.
year,
Yeah,
the
he
bulk
did.
of their conference was extremely overrated, except for these 2 that we're going to see in the national championship.
Behemoths.
But the previous, 8, 9 years, that's a tough argument.
Why
You know
you-
what? That used to be a
Why
really,
did they
really
Why did they
deep
go
league.
to a playoff? Because they got tired of SEC teams winning.
Well-
SEC teams was playing each other.
That's not quite true. They got tired of exactly what we're going to have on Monday, which was an SEC championship game. That's why we have a playoff, which is going to be interesting just in the future. Where
'em.
this playoff goes,
Beat
it's going
'em.
to be interesting because now we've got a team that didn't win their state championship, didn't win their division, didn't win their conference that's going to have a chance to play for the national
All I know is that
championship.
St. Nick got one huge break this year because he got in to start with when he didn't deserve to.
He did deserve it.
Then he got Kelly Bryant, and now he's going to get a true freshman with a team that just runs the football. Thank you, God.
But don't.
I mean, if they don't beat Georgia, I'll maybe like inch closer to your position, but that's a tough
They're
limb
going
to
to
climb
beat
out on.
Georgia.
They-
This
they
is on a
probably-
silver
hold on.
championship
Okay,
platter.
Getting in is one thing, but don't you got to do something when you get there?
Yeah.
I mean, what good is going to the restaurant if I ain't got no money to buy nothing when I get there?
No mercy. Alabama dominated Clemson last night to advance to the national championship game. We're joined now by Charlie Weis. Charlie, what was your takeaway from the game?
You know, I agree a little bit with what Skip said in the last segment that it really came down to 2 plays. because it really was a defensive battle. I mean, Alabama's offense didn't do a whole hell of a lot.
No,
it didn't.
Clemson's offense did less, and it just came down to those 2 turnovers. The quarterback gets he gets hit, and they intercept the ball, get it, and down close, and they go in and score on a broken play.
Right.
And then they intercept the pass for a touchdown, and game's over because, Alabama's defense obviously was fresh and healthy, and once you get there, you got the dogs are going to be coming now, because once they get that lead, and they know that you're going to have to score 3 times to go ahead and play with them. You got very little chance against that defense.
And you got to go score 3 times going from distance because Alabama kept them pinned down. Go ahead, Skip.
Would you agree that all turnovers are not created equal? Some are just bad luck. Some are clearly forced. And Kelly Bryant on the first one, there are 2 plays that happen within 13 seconds of each other, and it's mid-third quarter. In the first one, Clemson is actually, dare I say, driving. They got it 1st and 10.
Oh, they were
Alabama's
driving.
35. And it's 10-6 Alabama, and I'm thinking, this is going to be interesting. And Kelly Bryant drops back to pass. He gets blown up, and he's trying to deliver the football, and it squirts sideways. And all of a sudden, Deron Payne is there, and he made a nice scoop. He did. He caught it. He's very athletic for his size.
But the circumstances all had to play together. Right. First of all, anytime you get a strip, anytime a guy hits a quarterback when they're throwing the ball, something bad could happen for the offense. Okay, and the guy, you got a defensive lineman who obviously has good hands. Need I say that you could see that the guy obviously has some athleticism about him.
Absolutely. He plays something other than D-line.
So there's the ball. There's the ball. He's going to catch it, and he obviously looked like he knew what to do with it once he got it.
Yeah. I mean, it required a horse collar to bring him down from behind, and there's 15 more.
The next one, the corner sticks his hand in there, hits the ball, pops up. But that's more of a good play by the corner right there.
But it's bad luck that it goes right to somebody else who just pick sixes it, right?
How many times have we seen that ball go to the ground? The guy knocks it down, goes to the ground, and that's it. But the game ended. When that second play happened, that was
ball game.
That was
24-6. It's over.
Because they were playing solid on defense, and granted, Clemson was given a little bit of the drive right there where, who knows, maybe they get a field goal,
maybe
maybe they get a touchdown. I don't know, but at the end of the day, Alabama getting those defensive players back healthy was the difference in the game.
And Kelly Bryant was not the difference maker, obviously, that Deshaun was in the last 2 championship games.
Well, he can't throw it like Deshaun.
I think he can't throw.
He can't run like Deshaun either.
Yeah. Deshaun's underrated as far as how good he can throw. I mean, he's a great thrower.
Yeah.
I
think we saw that this year in pro football.
He's a great thrower.
But, Charlie, if you look at Alabama's not trying to do a whole lot offensively. They're just not trying to lose the game. Coach Saban does not want to put the ball in harm's way, and if he felt that if you don't get a scoop and score or a pick six, he felt with Kelly Bryant as their quarterback, with no big-time receivers, he could take Minkah Fitzpatrick and put him on Renfro. He wasn't worried about it.
Look, I'm used to dealing with defensive head coaches now, and the one time when Nick was hammering Dable, you know what he was telling him? Why weren't you running the ball those 2 plays? He throws two incomplete passes in a row. He rolls to the right and then 2 incomplete passes. Yep. He goes, why aren't you running the ball? And he probably said, run the, and then there was another word, and then there was ball.
Said that. So now we look ahead to, on a silver platter for Alabama, is a team that just runs the ball. They have a freshman quarterback, a true freshman, and he's efficient, but he's not going to pick Alabama to pieces the way we've seen them get picked to pieces by a Deshaun or even a Trevor Knight or Chad Kelly or those kinds. He's just not a bombs away passer.
Yeah, I've seen these good runners try to run against Alabama's defense. I watched Fournette get the crap kicked out of him.
Twice. Yep.
When they could tee up on a team that's run first, pass second, usually they do a good job. The flip side of that, though, the only reason why Georgia has a chance, even though I'm definitely picking Alabama, is because Alabama's offense doesn't do much either.
Exactly.
They really don't do too much. I mean, they have good running backs. And that number 3 is special.
Yeah,
he really is. He's special. But that being said, they don't do a lot on offense, and Georgia's defense, which obviously was in a mismatched game last night because they just couldn't cover them.
In the first half.
They couldn't cover them. They couldn't cover them. If you can't cover them in the first half, you can't cover them in the second half.
Well, then what happened? Why did Baker?
That's a whole separate issue. That's not the topic right now.
But again, Georgia looked vulnerable on defense to the pass. So can Jalen Hurts throw enough to gash them? Or are we looking
They was vulnerable to the run. The guy ran for over 200.
I know. He had 125 and a half.
Look at Jalen. Jalen is a hell of an athlete and can make every throw. Okay, but usually the timing throws are not his deal.
Right.
Usually the nuance, play action, down the field type of throws are where he makes his money, or quick game, game throwing the ball right now. That's usually where he thrives. So I think that Georgia's defense could give Alabama's offense some trouble, but I think that Alabama's defense could really be ready to tee it up against Georgia.
Are we looking at like 7-3 here?
No, you always expect it to be that way.
And you watch it be a shootout.
And it never ends up turning out that way. I see a game maybe in the 20s though. I don't see a game in the 40s like so many of the Big 12
And the thing is, Skip, the quarterback position, and Charlie, you know this, is a rhythm position. Position. So when Alabama runs the ball 10 times, then all of a sudden they ask Jalen Hurts to go throw a pass. What do they expect? Do they expect pinpoint accuracy when you haven't let him throw the ball in 3 minutes? So it's hard to get a rhythm because he never knows. He doesn't go in the game, oh yeah, I'm gonna get me about 30 throws this game. You might get 13.
Yeah, and most of his passes are coming off of play action too. So play action passes, you don't have to be as precise.
Right.
Okay, you have a greater margin of error both in the timing of your throws and the nuances of the route. There's a lot of deeper routes.
Right.
Whether they're in cuts or posts or corner routes, they're deeper. They take more time. So this way you lay it out there, and most of those guys can run them down out there for Alabama.
I will remind you though, I watched Auburn run for 168 on Alabama. Maybe they weren't psychologically
No,
ready
they didn't have the
game.
same guys. I'm not making an excuse. No. They're so banged up on defense. The last month of the year, I don't know how Alabama got to where they got to with as many. Did you realize they're down to the third play caller?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you lose your play caller, that's defense, significant. Yeah. And then they lose their second play caller. So now you're to your third play caller. I mean, that takes some time for that guy to figure out, you're the guy, because it isn't like 5 different guys make every call on defense. One guy makes the call and everyone lives with him, whatever that is.
But Auburn tricks you running the football. It's all, misdirection. Georgia just says, here we come.
And y'all couldn't do anything about it.
That's my problem.
That's your OU. I mean, that's your team, Skip. Did you tell Charlie that you didn't pound me up this morning?
I pounded you
no,
up.
No, you didn't.
It took
Begrudgingly.
me a while.
Begrudgingly.
I pounded you up. Yeah.
That's ridiculous, Skip. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
I'm not ashamed. I'm ashamed of my football.
No mercy. Michigan blew a 16-point lead and lost to South Carolina in the Outback Bowl yesterday. The Wolverines finished a disappointing 8-5 this season, but Jim Harbaugh's name has been thrown around in a potential return to the NFL. After the game, he was asked if this was his last season in Ann Arbor, and he simply said no. Shannon, what's going on here?
His tenure thus far has been a disappointment. Skip, when you're the head coach at Michigan or you're the head coach at Ohio State or Michigan State, you got 2 jobs. Beat Ohio State, beat Michigan State if you're the head coach of Michigan.
True.
And he's 1-5 in those games.
Yep.
You can go 10-2, but your 2 losses can't be to those 2 teams. Now, all these antics, being up in a tree house, going over, eating dinner at a parent's house, holding the yard mark on a high school game, all that's fine and good. And the college kids are going to eat it up. Jim Harbaugh was at my game holding the yard marker. He was in my tree house. Skip, I'm sure the kids at Michigan now, they love going to Rome. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they love being an endorsee of Brand Jordan. They don't care about that. Those alumni, those big boosters, They brought you there. They're paying you $9, $10 million a year to beat Urban Meyer, to beat Michigan State, Mike D'Antoni, D'Antonio, right? Mark D'Antonio. Mark D'Antonio.
Yep.
They're paying you the big dollars to beat those guys and to be in the college football playoff.
Yep.
And he has yet to do it. Now, Brady Hoke, they say, oh, Brady Hoke was terrible. In his first 3 years, he won 26 games and a Sugar Bowl. Jim Harbaugh, first 3 years, won 28 games and a Citrus Bowl. Now, you tell me who's winning. Now, I get it. All the khaki pants, you told me he was better than Kiss, but we'll talk about that later. You know, he told me that he was better than St. Nick.
Well, did St. Nick do well with the Miami Dolphins?
Whoa, Skip. We talk about college coaching.
I'm just talking about overall coach.
No.
Just coach.
Well, Pete Carroll better than he is. Because Pete Carroll won a Super Bowl and he won national championships at USC. Okay,
he's
then.
in the same, but hey, Jim Harbaugh came real close to winning a Super Bowl. I thought it was pass interference. He got robbed.
I came real close to somebody the other night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can say.
Well,
That between me and the fence post. Fence
Yeah,
post
right.
can't talk. She ain't tell it either. But anyway, Skip, look here. I'm going to put it to you in a nutshell. He grinds on people. Look at his shelf life. 4 years in San Francisco. Stanford, 4 years. San Diego State, 3 years. He starts to grind. He starts to annoy you. And that's what happens. Now look at his brother. Let's take his brother. He's been in Baltimore for a decade.
Yeah.
He was a special teams coach in Philadelphia for a decade. You see the difference? One guy, oh man, he's great. Have him around. The next guy, he
Yep.
started to be like fish. After 3 days, it's time to throw him out because he smells. That's what Jim Harbaugh do. He starts to grind, he starts to annoy you, and you're ready to move on. But I can tell you this, all that's fine and good, and the brand Jordan and going to Rome and meeting the Pope, maybe he gave the Pope some brand Jordans. But I tell you what, if you don't start beating Urban Meyer and you don't start beating Mark D'Antoni at Michigan State, they're going to get you up out of there, bro.
that is true. So, to your point, I've heard from 2 sources close to the Michigan program that this team is already burning out on Jim Harbaugh because he's burning out the team. He coaches with his hands sort of around the figurative throat of his team.
Yes.
He tries to force victory, and it's gotten to the point where 2 quarterbacks recently, they left.
out.
Yeah, they can't take
Deuces.
it anymore because the pressure was extraordinary. He didn't take over a failing team. It was Michigan.
Yeah.
And it's his alma mater, but it's like, come home and save us. And so they expect right away, hey, show us. What do you got? Well, he had 10-3 and 10-3. Not terrible, but to your point, not what they wanted because he's not winning the game against the opponent.
You got to beat.
Yeah.
You got to beat Ohio State
Yeah.
at least once in a while.
Yeah. So this year they're supposedly having the 12th best recruiting class, which is okay, but it's not great.
No.
And I don't see a quarterback on the horizon. So if you don't have a quarterback,
The guy from Ole Miss, Shea Patterson.
I know. Yeah, he's.
They don't know if he's going to be eligible.
Maybe. But okay, so look at his history. So he starts at the University of San Diego, and he just flips it right around.
Yes.
And he goes 11-1 and 11-1, and then he's off to the races up to Stanford, and he turns that program right around, and they go from 4-8 to 5-7, 8-5, 12-1. You know, he's on a roll. He's challenging Pete Carroll at USC.
Yeah.
And trash talking him. And then he takes over the 49ers, and they're struggling, and they just go right up the ladder, and all of a sudden you go 13-3, and then 11-4-1, 12-4, but then you start to burn out, and the organization and especially the executive staff start to burn out on you.
Yeah.
And after an 8-8, you're out. So I'm afraid the shelf life isn't very long, and the window was open for him to have a quick breakthrough, and he didn't. I don't think he's had the quarterback yet. All those guys, even the guys who transferred, I don't know if they're very good.
I mean, he gets a few top recruits.
Yeah.
But they go in there, if you want to play in the Big Ten, you go into Ohio State. That's the factory. You go into Alabama. Penn State is on the market. Penn State is making what Franklin is doing in Penn State. Skip, they're not going. He's not getting in that name Michigan playing in the big house. That means 108,000. But he grinds people.
He does.
I know too many people that's been around him, and they're like, after a while, you wish you could go away, or you want him to go away.
Yep.
But you need to be apart from each other.
Okay.
And that's what we're seeing, Skip.
I still say he's a really good football coach in small doses, in small windows, And if I'm a
Yeah, but
pro
what-
football team, I'm looking hard at it.
What happens when I'm feeling better and I still got to take that medicine? I don't like, but Skip. But here's the thing,
Look
though.
at those records, though.
Yes.
That's sensational.
And when you're doing that, what is it telling you? That people can't wait for you to leave, or they're not making you an offer that you can't refuse to stay. That's got to be something, Skip. That's got to be something. You can't have the people, oh, Jim, we're sorry you're going, as they're helping you pack your bag. Oh, Jim, oh, really? I know a good realtor. They helping you get up out the house, Skip.
Yeah, but any of those NFL teams with an opening where they're struggling, just short term, you don't want to take a shot with Jim Harbaugh.
Skip.
He might just turn you right around.
Okay, yeah, but you know this. You got a short shelf life. You get 4 or 5 years, and it's over. So get what you can, win while you can, because you're going to be tired of him. He's going to be tired of you because he's going to want more and more and more, because it wasn't enough. Because remember, he had the satellite campus. He was going down to Florida. See, that wasn't far enough, Skip. Now I got to go to Rome. Come on now. At some point, I don't mind. I'm sure those boosters, they'll send him to the moon.
Yeah.
Beat Michigan, beat Ohio State and Michigan State. They send you to the moon.
No mercy. Thanks for listening to the Undisputed Podcast. I'm Joy Taylor. We're back at the same time tomorrow morning, 9:30 Eastern. We'll see you then.
Fox Sports 1 of 1.